All right, so let's listen to Jimmy's take or Jimmy's breakdown here.
So what we're talking about today is Breaking Point's hosts that are lying again about force the vote. Now, I'll show you this. Remember, Ilhan Omar tweeted this out, part of the squad. She said, yes, we can with a slim Dem majority in the next Congress. Anything can be possible. Turns out nothing was possible. Absolutely nothing. It will literally take 5 courageous progressive members to get concessions on progressive policies. There is literally not one courageous progressive in Congress. Literally isn't one.
You know, it's the difference between stand-ups and improv people. Like, that's why they didn't like your sort.
That's right.
Because these are improv people.
These are
very different.
Very different.
They're more yes and.
Yes. That's why Stephen Colbert. Yeah. That's right. So look what they're doing here. So they took Ilhan Omar's advice and they got all these concessions for their vote for speaker. And the reason why you wanted to do a force the vote, a Medicare for all, reason why you would do that is because sometimes it gets members on the record so people can't make excuses. Sometimes these votes create real political pressure that forces developments. And sometimes we vote for historical record.
Let me interject here because I think what the Republicans has done with their force to vote has opened the left eyes that our ask for Medicare for all vote was not even a lot. So now, if the opportunity presents itself and we try to get the squad to force it, or whoever's elected to force a vote, now we coming in with a lot more demands than a floor vote. Look at what the Freedom Caucus or Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert was able to extract, some of which is a cut to military spending. Someone on the right is cutting military spending, and the squad is voting for military spending. And white left media has attached themselves to that host. There are no progressives in Congress at all, Jimmy. Let's continue.
The future generations know that we did everything we could. So
force the vote. Hashtag force the vote.
Hashtag force the vote. They didn't do anything, right? And so now people are trying to rewrite history. And what they actually did was turn on the activists who wanted them to do something, force the vote, and get something for their vote. For what they did was they turned on us. And they said that we were committing violence against AOC. That's what they said. And that we don't know what we're doing, and that we're children and all kinds of names, right? So now they're rewriting history. Now, Krystal Ball was actually for force to vote very tepidly, but she was for it when we were doing it, right? So, because she knew it would be bad to come out against it. But now she is going to run interference for the squad. Watch this.
And then the last thing you have to say about this is, this is the identical situation that the squad was in last time around when Democrats had a very narrow majority in the House. There was pressure on them to do something with their numbers to get their own concessions, whether that was key committee positions or whether it was certain votes on the floor of the House. And they have completely taken a different tack. And I think we see now.
Oh, he's stopping it at the same place. I was about to stop it here. Okay.
So she's implying, she goes, they completely took a different tack. They didn't take any tack.
It shouldn't be called a squad because a squad does things
together.
Yeah, right.
They didn't.
Did they take a different tack? What is the different tack? Maybe we can ask Krystal, what was the other strategy they went with? So Krystal trying to say like there was multiple choice and they said, not A, force the vote. We're going to pick B. What is that? What is that they picked?
Didn't do anything. So she's pretending like they chose a different strategy to achieve progressive goals. That's what she's saying right there. I'll play it for you again.
Oh, well,
okay.
I just want to alienate the squad. They're our best hope.
so watch this. This is amazing. This is like Kyle Kalinske sleight of hand right here. Watch this.
And they have completely taken a different tack. And I think we see now with the level of concessions that this group has already been able to extract from McCarthy that and the way that the squad has been completely sidelined in the Democratic Party, that was clearly the wrong approach.
Oh.
So she's now pretending that the squad has been sidelined in the Democratic Party, and they didn't see that coming. They didn't know that they would be sidelined by Nancy Pelosi. They didn't really know that. So she's, again, this is the second lie, right? So they didn't take a tack. They didn't have a strategy to get progressive goals met. They didn't do
So in the Vanguard's video, I guess this is not a lie to them. This is really semantics, because what Jimmy is illustrated and what he refers to as a lie, he's saying now you're softening your talking points on the subject because you're trying to protect the squad, protect by way of Ryan Grimm, because he's the one who has access. And now that they have secured them on breaking points as the counterpoints, she has to kind of tread lightly to keep Ryan Grimm in the good graces to have access. So let's continue.
Freaking anything. And now she just made that lie. There's another one coming. Hang on.
They thought they could play an inside game. They thought that would be the way to ultimately pursue and achieve their policy objective.
Now that is...
They never thought that. See, so this is semantics. I mean, it's getting in the grounds for when I would start to begin to say this is a lie. You are getting into lie territory by giving the impression that somehow they did some other tack to get Medicare for all, and they have not. They simply have not. So it's not lying on the points of forced to vote. It's lying to pretend as if they did something else or had some other strategy.
It's 100,000% lie. That's what she looks like when she's lying. If you wanted to know what Krystal Ball looks like when she's lying, that's what she looks like. Because that is a fucking lie. They didn't have a strategy. They didn't do anything except turn on the activists, lie about what they were doing, and then roll over for the corporate machine and vote for everything Nancy Pelosi told them to. They didn't oppose her one bit.
Also, I keep bringing this up, but they also were heavens to Murgatroyd. What if Kevin McCarthy becomes speaker? I can't get over that. That was the big, because then Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, that's right. But that's not the, I don't know if the squad said that, but what she's saying, but lots of people defending them said that. You're right about that, Kurt. But what she's saying right here are three huge lies. So she could keep her access with the squad or her whatever party she wants to be invited to, or keep her donor money. I don't know what, I don't know. I can only speculate, but those are three big lies. Do you see how slippery she is when she lies? You wouldn't catch it the first time. She's like, oh, she's saying that the squad was wrong. That's what it looks like, right? Looks like she said, oh, the squad is wrong. She's saying they were wrong.
Yeah, right.
No, what she is lying about.
Wasn't she a politician?
Is, yes, she was. She wanted to be a politician like Jenks. She couldn't get elected. But what she is trying to make you think is that they just made a mistake. That they actually they had a different.
Isn't that the new approach? Wasn't that the last interview AOC did with Ryan Grimm? We did either a segment on it, and I think it's called "Did I Do That?" That one with AOC as Steve Urkel. Let's listen. But yeah, you can go check it out.
Idea on how to meet different different tack on how to meet their progressive goal. They never had one freaking they never had an idea on how to get there. They didn't have any intention of doing.
What he's saying is she's doing to the story of forced to vote what Ryan Grimm did to the story of the strike breaking. Acting like they really had a reason to do that. So let's continue.
Any of that. And what that's called is a lie. That's a lie.
Jimmy, they had a strategy.
Okay, what was their strategy?
To get on the cover of Rolling Stone with Nancy Pelosi.
And they got on it. They got on
They
it.
got that
doing it.
success.
We're gonna get. Don't bring
You
in
don't have
Paul.
time for your green dreams or whatever.
So I'll play that for you again. So now that you know what they are, watch how slippery she is and when how she presents these.
And then the last thing you have to say about this is, this is the identical situation that the squad was in last time around when Democrats had a very narrow majority in the House. There was pressure on them to do something with their numbers to get their own concessions, whether that was key commit.
Yeah, it was called Force the Vote. I know you don't want to mention it.
If you're going to fight corporate media, why are you still being corporate?
Why are you still being corporate?
That's corporate bullshit.
Exactly. And here she goes again. Now here she's going to do run interference and lie to you about what the squad actually did. Here it comes.
Positions or whether it was certain votes on the floor of the House. And they have completely taken a different tack. And I think we see now with the level of concessions that this group has already been able to extract from McCarthy that and the way that the squad has been completely sidelined in the Democratic Party, that was clearly the wrong approach. They thought they could play an inside game. They thought that would be the way to ultimately
Yeah. This is pretty bait and switch. Like, this is pretty sneaky and underhanded. What she's trying to present is, instead of doing force the vote, they did their other strategy and it didn't work. So she's presented as their other strategy didn't work. Instead of they didn't want to do force the vote and they didn't do force the vote and they didn't have any other strategy that they were working on to get the same goal. Yeah.
Pursue and achieve their policy objectives.
They weren't playing any game. They weren't playing an outside game. They weren't playing an inside game. And you're lying to protect them right now. And you're getting something out of it. I don't know exactly what, but you are getting it. Maybe it's to keep Ryan Grimm, who's also a co-host on your show, his access to the squad, because those are the only people they give interviews to is to Ryan Grimm. So maybe she's lying so she can keep her access to the squad because they get all the interviews with the squad. Squad don't go anywhere else in progressive media except to Ryan Grimm because they know Ryan Grimm will.
Do you think that's why Ryan Grimm has the positions he has? You think that's why Ryan Grimm came on with Bad Faith with Brianna and Shama and tried to pull that nonsense that got Shama to say, "What the fuck?" Or she said something along those lines. What the actual fuck? Let's continue.
Will protect them and let them lie, like he did when he interviewed Pramila Jayapal, and she said that McCarthy could become speaker if they didn't force the vote, and he didn't push back on her. So that's my speculation as to why she's lying right now, and that is exactly what she's doing. And believe me, her audience knows it. They're onto them. People have sniffed out Rachel. What is her name? Krystal Ball. People have sniffed her out. And if you go through their comments, a lot of their videos, which I do, because I have that kind of time, and people are sniffing them out. And their subscriber count has trickled to it's down to a trickle, right? So they're stuck at around 840,000, and this is why. Because they're not real. They're not really going to push back. And this is mealy-mouthed bullshit. And she's protecting her access for Ryan Grimm to the squad. Let's see how she ends it.
And it just has not ultimately been the case. So in terms of political strategy and what works, it helps to have a few sort of asshole bomb throwers.
Yeah, so that's how she's going to talk about people who actually stand up to the establishment. She calls them assholes. That's her big idea. So now the people who are standing up, extracting concessions for their vote for speaker, she calls them assholes. So apparently, if the squad would have done that, they would have been asshole bomb throwers instead of principled progressives using their leverage.
Yeah, well, just the very concept of the squad is so followery, improv. It sounds like an improv group.
So now, her co-host, another host at Breaking Points, is Ryan Grimm, who's also the DC bureau chief for The Intercept, and for that billionaire-funded rag that can't tell the truth about Syria, can't tell.
Yeah, and they're a intelligence cutout, like a very likely intelligence cutout, funded by a tech oligarch. Yeah. So yeah, come on.
Tell the truth about Russiagate, can't tell the truth about Ukraine, can't tell the truth about force to vote. And here we are. He says progressive. So this is him trying to pretend that the progressives actually, that the squad actually got something.
Yeah,
You remember when they got Pago? So without getting into the weeds, Pago is nothing, right? So he's saying, look, they won the rules change that would allow Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, and other big ticket agenda items to be exempted from Pago. So if they abided by the rules of Pago, you couldn't do any of those things, Medicare, Green New Deal. And he said, look, they got him to agree to that. The problem is they'd already agreed to that. That's why Ryan was lying. They had already agreed to that. This is from the Huffington Post. However, the Congressional Progressive Caucus effectively decided it was not worth tanking the entire set of rules governing the new Congress to jettison Pago, since they had received assurances from the Democratic leaders that the provision would always be waived to allow progressive bills to proceed to the House floor. So that was before the negotiation.
So you see what? So if you don't see what he's breaking down, he's building a case and an illustration how Ryan Grimm and in an initial video there are here developing narratives and scenarios to give cover or excuse or reason to the squad. So this particular point, he's saying what Ryan Grimm, and he's trying to act like, look, Pago. He's trying to say, Pago, look, they got this when it had already been done. Because he's trying to create a narrative that shields them. Look, this was a reason, like he did with the strike break. Look, workers from the union told us to do it this way. Creating a narrative to shield these people from obvious backlash from their votes.
Over forced to vote. That's where it stood. So they got nothing. Ryan Grimm knew that they got nothing, and he was lying to protect them, just like she's lying to protect. It's very subtle lies, right? You don't say, well, they did get a Pago exemption. They did do that. Yeah, but it's a lie. And he knows it's a lie because they know it's a lie, and they get together and think of what lies to fucking tell us. What? And so there it is. That's the lie. So now Brianna Joy Gray, Bernie Sanders' former press secretary, confronted him and asked him about his constant gaslighting.
Think about this is breaking points, people. The one that's trying to replace TYT, the one that's trying to be the next TYT, the left, Hudson Institute. Now, Sagar's not a left, granted, but he's populist. So Hudson Institute, white savior complex in Jordan Sheraton. Then you got this, I don't know, obviously CIA infiltration tactic deployer, Ryan Grimm. And if you didn't see our segment on infiltration tactics, just Google it and it should come up, or just go to Nick's Twitter page. He has it. Search Nick, Socialist MMA, and search CIA infiltration tactics, and it'll pop up. All right, so let's listen some more though.
For the squad over forced to vote.
All I know is how they're behaving, and at the time, Ryan, the fact that you were driving that point home so hard and really advocating for, the idea that they had truly won something that was super relevant and consequential, seemed like it was, in the terms of the internet, carrying water for these squad members to.
So what she just.
So now I've never seen this interview. There's a lot of force of vote history that I'm not aware of. So I've never seen this interview with Brianna and Ryan. But think about, why is Ryan always being called out for covering for the squad. Like, it's multiple time over years. This is years ago. This interview here, not the Jimmy Dore, but the interview that he's watching.
Just pointed out was what I just pointed out, that he was lying for them. She calls it carrying water for them. He was lying for them around force the vote and this issue. She's just pointing it out. And about Pago, she's saying you're pretending that they got a huge win and it's nothing. Okay.
Whom the rest of us perceive as having pretty obviously lost an important fight that they could.
So everybody else sees that the squad lost an important fight that they could have won, and but then the rest of it goes behind a paywall. So I don't know what bullshit he said back, but I do know that when he got Pramila Jayapal, the head of the Progressive Caucus, on his show, and she said that if they did force the vote, that McCarthy could become speaker, he didn't push back on it at all. He let her say it. And that's why they go to Ryan Grimm to give those interviews, because they know Ryan Grimm is a good boy who takes billionaire money and protects politicians. That's who Brian Grimm is. He's here to take simple morality issues and make them seem complicated. So that's what he's. He was for squashing the strike of the railroad workers. He took the side of the railroad against the workers. That's the guy who's now on breaking points with Krystal and Sagar. That's who they want to associate themselves with, and that's why Krystal just lied to her own audience about what the squad's role was in Force the Vote. Why? Because he gets access to them, and he's now a host on Breaking Points, and they're all in their toxic, corrupt little fucking cabal, and it's not working. By the way, their own fans see right through it. Anybody want to jump in?
It's like a mobile Jen Psaki. Like
yes,
have remote Jen Psakis everywhere to just spew the PR.
That's what he is. Yeah. And so here's some of the lies he was trying to tell. Remember when he tried to go after Justin Jackson, who was a former football player here in Los Angeles, and he's for the Lions. He had a great week last week. And it's a tactic. He's talking about force the vote. You mean withholding your vote, using leverage to get something for your vote. He goes, it's a tactic. Sometimes it's smart, sometimes it's not. It depends on the circumstances. It's third down and you need 1 yard. Running might be the smart call. If it's third and 30, running isn't a smart call. It's sadly not. So that's him saying force the vote.
Just gumming up nonsense. This is a CIA tactic here.
But was dumb and a bad idea.
He's trying to do the thing of it wouldn't have passed. Like we wanted to threaten the people.
Right. And look at all the attention it would have got, Medicare for All. Mm-hmm. Right now, all week, everybody's talking about Matt Gaetz and the right wing holding out their speaker vote. And we would, if the Progressive Squad would have did this, we would have been talking about Medicare for All for a whole week during a deadly pandemic on every TV station. That would have been a huge win. And I'm going to show you why in a second. But Theory is lying. And then all of a sudden, Justin Jackson comes in and says, it's not 3rd and 30 either. It was 3rd and 30 when Bernie started running, and hardly anyone supported Medicare for All. It's actually 4th and 1 on the goal line, down 14 in the fourth quarter, and they're kicking a field goal. How about go for it and get us closer to taking the lead? That's a real football player using this nerd trying to use a football analogy, and this guy comes in and bodies him. That's a real football player from the NFL. He says they're worried, meaning the squad. They're worried if they go for it. Not only are they certain they won't make it, but they might be tackled in the backfield and turn it over on downs, leaving their movement worse off than it was to begin with. So he's saying that the Medicare for All movement would have been worse off had they fought for it. Hey, look at all those gains we made in the last 2 years since we didn't do.
Why is a journalist saying that and telling people that? Like, why are you advocating for that? A journalist. So bizarre. This guy, Ryan Grimm. I don't trust this guy whatsoever.
Do force the vote on Medicare for All. We would have lost all those. They didn't do shit.
It's like
so this is again, you couldn't tell a bigger lie than Ryan Grimm is telling right now. And that's because that's his job, is to lie to protect politicians. That's his job. And that's who Breaking Points wants as a co-host on their fucking show. Keep that in mind.
I was just about to say, keep that in mind. This is Breaking Points. Their whole sort of setup, the group they've assembled. I did a stream on this a long time ago. It has to be at least a year. when they introduced Jordan Sheraton, when they introduced Matt Stoller, when they introduced David Sirota, and they in the lever, and then Ryan Grimm, and then Marshall from, I think it's the Realignment podcast with Sagar.
Fine. And here he is. And Justin Jackson bodies him again. He says, I'm sorry, man. This is a horrible analogy and the type of thinking that gets coaches fired. You have to take risks, especially when the situation is advantageous. You're arguing for the field goal. The safe play actually increases your chances of losing the game and not vice versa. Yeah. So he's saying, he's making up this thing that nobody ever heard before, that if you fight for something, it sets it back. That's not a real thing. He made that up so he can find way. So he's taking a simple morality issue.
So he's been making up illogical logic this long. I didn't know that. I thought his first illogical logic was the strike breaking bullshit that he came up with.
And he's trying to make it complicated because he's paid by billionaires to gaslight progressives.
Trying to make it complicated. That is a CIA tactic.
And he's fucking
CIA infiltration tactic.
Doing it on breaking points. Go ahead, Kurt.
You know how they, slavery was ended with no fighting. It was going to just end.
Well, we wanted to have a bill that would end slavery, but we were afraid it's going to set slavery back to even talk about it.
Yeah.
So this was what he was doing yesterday on Twitter. I'm begging people.
Okay, this is new because I watched the first 10 minutes of it, and the last part because that's where RBN is. So this part, like Nick's like to say, I'm going in blind. The next maybe 3 minutes of this play. So I have not seen this. I did not know this was a current tweet, and this is from 2 days ago. January 5th. What did this guy say? Let's see.
People to stop pretending that Jimmy Dore invented the idea of using leverage in the year of our Lord 2021. So this is another great. This is right out of a CIA textbook. What he's doing there is changing the subject, trying to pretend like this was what we were talking about. Like people wanted to give Jimmy Dore credit for inventing leverage in politics.
He did this same thing in an interview with Shama and Bree, where they would ask a question, he would literally not answer and just begin talking about something else. I'm begging people to stop pretending that Jimmy Dore invented the idea of using leverage in the year of our Lord 2020. I guess this is an attempt at being funny. I don't know what this guy's doing. Why are you begging people? How about you as a journalist just shut the fuck up and go journalist somewhere? Why are you chiming in, Ryan? Like, shut up. You're chiming in to sway narratives in favor of the squad, sir, and everybody knows it.
Politics. I never even wanted credit for it. I gave credit to the DSA. They're the one who came up with the idea.
AOC was saying it.
AOC was the one who said we need to force a vote for Medicare for all on the House floor. And you know who else said it 30 years ago? Nancy Pelosi. So I didn't think of it. I never said I thought of it.
So the criticism was this is the rest of the tweet. The criticism was always about the demand for a vote on the House floor that would lose by 200 at least. That's all it's about. Didn't the Vanguard just say it's about Jimmy Dore? Didn't Anna on a video say it was about Jimmy Dore? Didn't Jank on a video say it's about Jimmy Dore? Didn't Sam on a video say it's about Jimmy Dore? I'm getting worried.
He's now changing the subject, trying to pretend that this is it.
Well, I am going to pretend that you did now.
He says the criticism was always about, the criticism, was always about, about what, a vote on the House, the floor, for get by at least, 200 at least. And, that was always about. That's my Ryan Grimm. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
No, that's pretty good.
Ryan Grimm.
He says the criticism was always about the demand for a vote on the House floor. No, you again tried to muddy the water, saying, "Don't ask for that. Ask for this."
He comes in and just dropping CIA tactics. That's what Ryan Grimm does. He comes in just to muck up. No, here's the reason I'm bringing out the air. So let's just go to the next tweet because I want to go to the next tweet.
Knows that, and this is him trying to muddy the waters again. Brianna Joy Gray comes in and says that's not true. We surfaced large numbers of demands. The floor vote was just one of them. Hey, they could have picked anything. We picked Medicare for all because everybody on the left agreed with it, and half the Republican Party agrees with it now. So that's why we chose that. They could have chosen anything. They said they were working to get their own thing. They were negotiating behind the scenes, and they weren't. And then Ryan Grimm said they were. So she's just lying again. What I had to come in on that thread and tell him was, no, you explained that McCarthy, he came on my show, and he explained that McCarthy could not become speaker. And his boss, Cenk Uygur at the Young Turks, was lying when he said that McCarthy could. I thank you for clarifying that on my show. You then went on to gaslight about the squad voting for Pelosi without extracting concessions was the right move. It wasn't, and you knew it. He didn't say that on my show, but he said that after he got off my show on Twitter and everywhere else. And it's difficult to get a man to understand something when his job depends on not understanding it. And that is Ryan Grimm.
Exactly what Ryan Grimm is.
Here he is.
That's a great quote.
Trying to pretend. This is back
point.
when we were doing Forced to Vote that nobody would cover it.
Can't trust
if you did it. That's what he says.
How can we trust any reporting that Ryan Grimm does? It literally can't be trusted. It's not worth the paper. Anything that comes from him or the Intercept, for that matter, but specifically from him, literally is not worth anything. I'm going to need another person, sir. I'm going to need another source besides Ryan Grimm.
That's all fine, but we already know who supports it. So that's why you want to do a vote. Find out who supports it, who doesn't. We can primary, all that stuff. He says, and I can promise you it would get zero press coverage because the press doesn't cover bills that can't pass both chambers.
Really?
So we wouldn't have a speaker sworn in, and it'd be on the 5th, 10th vote, whatever, from Nancy Pelosi, and he's saying they wouldn't cover it. This person is not to be believed whatsoever. Here's the problem for the squad moving forward. They're going to lose less people than they've already lost, because once this scenario gets back to where they're in the House and they're in the majority, people are going to go, why don't y'all do what the Freedom Caucus did for a $15 minimum wage and Medicare for all? And they'll have a bunch of lists. Why don't y'all do that shit? And what are they going to do then? Because we're going to have the benefit of hindsight in history and seeing that the Freedom Caucus actually extracted concessions and that the media actually covered it for 4 days. And that it was literally the top story for 4 straight days. What are they going to say? That is a very curious question to know or to think. What could they say about this now?
Matt Orfila says, you're already fucking covering it. And look what's happening right now. Yeah. The entire corporate media structure has shut down and is covering this Forced to Vote wall to wall in real time. So that's Ryan Grimm. Again, it doesn't matter if people see that he's a moron and he doesn't know as much about politics as a pothead comedian, even though that's his only fucking skill. He doesn't care because he knows his billionaire money will continue to come in and his friends in the establishment will continue to protect him. All the people who work at The Intercept, the Ken Klippenstein, they're going to protect him. All his powerful politicians will protect him. All the people at TYT and people at MSNBC and CNN, they're all going to protect him. That's why he feels comfortable and confident enough, this Breaking Points host, to go and lie like that. Because that's what that is. You see what's happening. Or do you think he's just the dumbest guy you ever met in your life? He's either lying or he's dumber.
That is the options. Either he's the dumbest guy, and Shama kind of alluded to this in the interview with Bree when she's like, okay, you know, I guess Ryan, you know, the political analysis, political analyst, I guess he's the only one who thought that the Senate was going to pass 6 days. It's not believable. So either he's this stupid or he's lying. This is why I said you can't, he is literally, for me, shredding his career. Like, he's a clown person to me now. No, I don't care to see any reporting from this person. It is not worth anything to me.
Dumber than me. He's dumber than Matt Orfalea, and me and Matt Orfalea are fucking C students.
Jimmy, the media point is really important, and I haven't heard you make it yet, but I think it's crucial. Imagine if right now, the media spectacle we're seeing around Kevin McCarthy, imagine even like a fraction of that media coverage about a fight over Medicare for all or any other progressive demand. Because, you know, the idea that the media wouldn't cover a group of lawmakers withholding their vote for the House Speaker nominee, that's just been like resoundingly disproven by what we're seeing right now. So
they cover it, but then they would stop when it got to the vote. They're like, oh, this ain't gonna pass.
So progressives did the same thing. And I mean, it's a counterfactual. We don't know exactly how it would go, but certainly there'd be some media attention. And whether the issue was Medicare for all, as you advocated, or what one of the other demands, there'd be some attention on progressive issues. I think that's pretty fair to assume.
Pretty fair, yeah.
Well, that's why he's saying the whole goal is for that to not happen.
I like what this guy, so he's still trying to change the subject. He says, again, my objection was to the demand you were making, which I thought made no sense. Not the idea of making demands in general. No, you were there again trying to muddy the waters and make a simple morality issue seem complicated like you did. And this guy says, no, Mr. Grimm, you are a liar. It has been shown you are a repeated liar, and now you look like a kitten trying to cover your shit in a litter box. The pothead has skewered you again. It's not a good look.